So in this segment, we're going to be talking about Michelle O'Neill saying our businesses will not be held to ransom by game-playing Brexiteers, essentially talking about the DUP and the Tory party. So, businesses are being held to ransom because businesses are reliant on the protocol to help shield them from the impacts of Brexit. In a sense, some businesses are impacted negatively by the protocol, but again, I advise those businesses to get your supply chains out of GB. But it's not, evidently Michelle O'Neill's had enough of this nonsense, and to be fair, so have I. Stormont needs to be open. Stormont can't change the protocol, get rid of it, but it can help people in Northern Ireland with day-to-day issues and try and help actually give them money to help them deal with the cost of living. So Michelle O'Neill said Boris Johnson is pursuing an agenda that endangers the Good Friday Agreement while cynically claimed to protect it, which is true. Boris Johnson is claiming what he's claiming that they're doing what's in the interest of the Good Friday Agreement is simply not true. To work with political leaders to ensure that politics works for ordinary workers and families across all communities. So that's important there, across all communities, not about unionists or nationalists. This is about helping people as much as they can across the board. And you see the strategy the Sinn Féin have gone for, which is very much dealing with day-to-day issues, bread and butter issues, as English people like to say, or British people like to say, which is to say the protocol isn't the big issue. It's the day-to-day living, it's the cost of living crisis. These are the things Sinn Féin are focusing on, rather than talking about United Ireland and all of this stuff. They're talking about helping people across all the communities, regardless of their political beliefs. Mary Lou MacDonald said to express the firm support that there is for the protocol. So essentially they've gone to speak to EU leaders and they've said that, that Sinn Féin support the protocol, and the vast majority of MLAs do as well. And that very much undermines the British narrative and the DUP. Miss O'Neill said they will be thanking them for their support for the Good Friday Agreement and the important solidarity they have shown in prioritising peace and stability in the North in the face of the UK government's cynical and reckless behaviour. So then she's saying to the EU, thanks for putting up with the British government, essentially, which, to be fair, he does. Sefcovic and the Commission do deserve a lot of credit. She says, I will be outlining the need for positive constructive solutions to outstanding issues around the protocol, because again, the protocol isn't perfect, and Sinn Féin acknowledge that the protocol isn't perfect. However, it does help Northern Ireland in a lot of ways. So it's about dealing with the negatives as best they can. And this is about sending the clear message that people in the North, our society and our businesses will not be held to ransom by game playing or political brinkmanship from the Brexiteers, which is what they're trying to do here. They are trying to pass legislation and breach international law. Last week, they were in London engaging with industry, trade union leaders, MPs and lords across all of Westminster and the media. They were there to reflect and present the realities and dispel the misinformation that is universal opposition to the protocol, because Boris Johnson spoke to them. I think Sinn Féin must have said something on the lines of, there are issues with the protocol, but it does help in certain ways, and Boris Johnson took that as a way of Sinn Féin saying there are issues with the protocol, and them agreeing with the the DUP and other parties around the protocol, which simply wasn't the case. There are issues with the protocol. I think most people will acknowledge that, but it's about dealing with those issues rather than scrapping the whole thing. It's worth reiterating that the people of the North voted against Brexit and never consented to being forced out of the EU, which is true. The people in Northern Ireland never voted for Brexit. They voted to remain, the majority of them did. They never voted for the protocol, but that was put on them by the British government. The British government, the Tories won the last election, and it was within their mandate to do that. We've got Brexit is fundamentally incompatible with the Good Friday Agreement, which is true. It was always going to cause problems with it, and has caused uncertainty for businesses here. There is not and never will be any good Brexit for Ireland, which is very much true. Brexit was always going to cause problems for Ireland because the idea that we would get an EFTA-style agreement was never going to happen, especially because of the way the British people, especially Brexiteers, think. We want to be rule makers, not rule takers. That's what they kept saying consistently after the Brexit referendum. EFTA was never going to work for that reason. She says, however, the protocol, while imperfect, limits the worst impacts of Brexit and protects the Good Friday Agreement, all-island economy, and prevents a hard border on our island, she says. I would not talk about the all-island economy, because that's a strong hint at reunification, but, I'm not going to criticise it too much for it. Miss O'Neill said the protocol does, however, offer many benefits to businesses in Northern Ireland by giving them continued access to the EU and British markets, which is true. The protocol does give them dual access, which is something that the DUP rarely ever acknowledge. she says, I welcome that Ballymena firm Wrightbus has secured a deal to supply 60 hydrogen buses to Germany over the next 2 years, which a British, a firm in Great Britain would have struggled to get because there are all sorts of issues for exporting those. You've got rules of origins checks, which would cause problems for trying to explain where all the parts for a bus came from, given how big buses are. And then you've got customs fees on top of that, which Northern Ireland won't have to deal with. She says this illustrates the benefits that our continued access to the single market is yielding for local businesses, our economy and jobs, she said. Many businesses in the north have seen a trade boom due to the protocol and the unique competitive advantage it gives them on these islands, that if you're looking to import certain products, you're not going to import them from Great Britain if you're an EU-based firm, but you are looking at Northern Ireland because you're not going to face the customs fees and other problems if you were going to import from England, for example. Business leaders, including the CBI, have been clear that they support the protocol and want it to work. That's something we covered as well, that the CBI chief, as much as I've called him a clown in the past for some of his previous statements, he has talked about how the protocol can help Northern Ireland, but Northern Ireland needs political stability as well. She goes on to say the electorate sent the message loud and clear that they want to see politicians working together at Stormont to deliver for the people, because at the end of the day, Northern Ireland, I'm sure the people in Northern Ireland, their biggest concern won't be the protocol. Their biggest concern will be the cost of living crisis. We're seeing inflation at around 10%, a 6% increase in food prices. It's ridiculous, honestly. So I think that would be the concern for the people in Northern Ireland, not necessarily the protocol, especially when groceries on average are cheaper in Northern Ireland than they are in the rest of Great Britain. She added that those in the DUP and the Conservative Party are trying to misrepresent the protocol and are holding Northern Ireland to ransom and is collateral damage in a game of chicken, which is true. The UK are very much, the Tories are very much playing chicken with the EU over the Northern Ireland protocol, and Northern Ireland are the victims of that game of chicken. These are the same Brexiteers who championed the hardest of Brexit and at every turn rejected solutions suggested to them, which is absolutely true. Had we gone for Theresa May's backstop, we would not be in this situation. Yet they know no credible alternatives. They talk about technology, never going to work. Find me a country that uses technology to police internal borders. It doesn't work. It never has done. You can't use technology like that. The idea that we will mutually enforce the other side's rules is not going to happen. Lord Tribble's idea, ridiculous. This is the only way. We're not going to join EFTA. That's not going to happen. Will we get an EFTA type agreement? I don't think that will happen, despite what other kind of YouTubers, other commentators have said. So there's not a ton of options here for the United Kingdom, or at least for Great Britain. She says the threats by Johnson to take unilateral action by legislating to breach an international agreement and undermine international rule of law is reckless and wholly unacceptable, which is true. You can't go around breaking international law. There's only 1 or 2 countries in the world that can do that, and we are not one of them. Only through joint solutions with the EU and within the framework of the protocol can issues be resolved, which is true. That's why the Joint Committee exists, in order to help resolve the issues. As First Minister designate, I am absolutely clear that the North must not and will not become collateral damage in a game of chicken designed to appease Tory backbenchers and the DUP, especially with Boris Johnson being on the ropes, facing a no-confidence vote. It's very clear that the Sinn Féin are watching the situation carefully and are determined not to let Northern Ireland be collateral damage for the Johnson to stay in power, essentially. And, there are politicians in Ireland that are very concerned that Boris Johnson will take a much more hardline approach to the protocol now that he's won his vote of no confidence and has to appease the DUP somehow. There are very much concerns of that in the Republic of Ireland. The Belfast Agreement must be applied in all its parts. The Good Friday Agreement, is true, has to be applied in all its parts. The Assembly, the Executive, North-South Ministerial Council, East-West Structures and the British-Irish Intergovernmental Conference, and without further interruption. And the DUP have played, they were taken to court over getting rid of some of the committees and some of the meetings, etc. And the courts were not happy about it. They were very upset at the DUP, and they were going to take potential legal action against them. And it's true that the full structure of the full parts of the Good Friday Agreement need to work. The Assembly, the Executive, the Assembly which has been closed because of the DUP, the Executive which cannot work because the Assembly is not open, the North-South Ministerial Council that's there to talk between Northern Ireland and the Republic of Ireland. I think the East-West structures would be about Ireland and the United Kingdom, and the British Irish International Intergovernmental Conference, where they can talk and air out any grievances they have. Communication is the key to resolving problems. You see, there was a really I'm going to go off on something here. A really good episode of Doctor Who where it was between two groups of people, the aliens versus the humans, obviously. But you had, I think it was the Saigons, and basically the Doctor in the end just said the only way you're going to resolve this conflict is the same way you resolve any conflict, is by dialogue. Which is true. The only way we're going to resolve this through dialogue. The only way the troubles were stopped were through dialogue. And that's it. Capaldi gave a really powerful speech in that one as the Doctor. I might link that in the description if I remember. It's really good. She says, we must apply the full powers and resources of the Executive and the Assembly to address the big issues of the day that voters elect us to deliver on. Voters didn't just elect them based on if they did or did not support the protocol. Sinn Féin were, I think, really elected on the basis that they would help try and resolve the cost of living crisis. That's what they ran on predominantly. Of course, Irish reunification is always on the table when Sinn Féin are involved, but the main crux of their campaign were most definitely dealing with the cost of living. She says it's time for us to deliver a stable power-sharing coalition that works and delivers. There can be no excuses, no attempt by the DUP or anyone else to punish the public and leave workers and families high and dry for a moment longer. And again, she's very much focusing on the cost of living crisis, which is a very smart move from Sinn Féin here. Very smart move. It shows they're being pragmatic. They want to deal with the situation at hand rather than dealing with what the party's main aims are. Again, smart moves from the Sinn Féin. You have to give them credit here. The solutions are there, but at the time the political will from Boris Johnson is not. His government are regrettably pursuing an anti-Belfast agreement agenda. The party, the group of people that are claiming they're protecting the Good Friday Agreement, yet they're the ones doing the most damage, the Conservative Party. Very much pursuing an anti-Good Friday Agreement agenda. And again, the question still stands, where do you put that border if you get rid of the border in the Irish Sea? No one can really answer that. Progress, she goes on, progress can only come from working together in good faith, which the Tories are not very good at, notoriously. She says, my focus will be on engaging with everyone to deliver these solutions for people across Ireland need to see delivery and leadership. She has shown a lot of leadership here. Her and Mary Lou MacDonald have shown a lot of leadership, but without Stormont being open, it just causes endless problems and means they can't do what they've been elected to do, which is really help deal with the cost of living crisis. I don't know what more to make of this, apart from the fact that I hope the people of Northern Ireland are watching this situation carefully and seeing which parties are causing the problems here. Because if there is another election for Stormont in a few months' time, because the Assembly can't be opened, I hope that the DUP get whacked even harder than they did in the last elections. But anyways, let me know what you think in the comments below. Like, comment, share, subscribe, support the channel on Patreon if you can, and hopefully I'll see you in the next one.